Love is not always loud. We are conditioned to believe that love must be expressed in obvious ways, through constant words of affirmation, grand gestures, and open displays of affection. But the truth is, love is as diverse as the people who carry it in their hearts. For some, love is soft, understated, and hidden behind the walls they've built to protect themselves, and that does not make it any less real or powerful. In fact, sometimes the quietest expressions of love are the deepest. Think about it for a moment. Imagine someone who has been hurt, someone who has learned to protect themselves from rejection or disappointment. Their natural instinct is to stay guarded, to stay in control, to not let anyone too close. For them, vulnerability feels like danger, and yet, despite that instinct, they choose to remain in your life. They may not always tell you how they feel in a loud or dramatic way, but their choice to stay, their decision to keep showing up, is love. It is their version of saying, "You matter, you are worth the risk." When we expect love to always look a certain way, we can miss the subtle beauty of how it shows up in others. Some people may not flood you with constant compliments, but they notice the little things about you. They remember the details of what you said weeks ago. They adjust their routine to make space for you, even if they never announce it. They listen more than they speak, and while they may not say, "I love you," every day, their actions speak in quiet tones that are easy to overlook if you're only listening for the loud version of love. And here's the deeper lesson. Love that is quiet requires us to be present and attentive. It requires us to look beyond words and watch what someone does consistently. A person who may not shower you with affection could still be the one who always answers when you call, who shows up when you need help, who chooses to stay even when it's uncomfortable for them. That consistency is love in action, and it's easy to underestimate because it doesn't sparkle like fireworks. It glows like a steady flame. Sometimes the loudest declarations of love are the easiest to give. Anyone can buy flowers, post about you online, or say the right words in the right moment. But to keep showing up day after day when it goes against their own fears and patterns, that is extraordinary. Love is not always loud, but it is always intentional. And when someone who struggles with vulnerability lets you in, even in the smallest way, that act is monumental. So the next time you question whether someone truly loves you because they don't express it the way you expect, pause and look closer. Notice the ways they remain. Notice the times they reach out quietly, even when it takes courage for them to do so. Notice how they protect you, support you, or make sacrifices without drawing attention to it. That is love. It may be silent, but it is steady and it is real. Love is not always loud, but when you learn to hear the whispers, you realize that sometimes the quietest kind of love is the strongest of all. Love is not always loud. We are conditioned to believe that love must be expressed in obvious ways, through constant words of affirmation, grand gestures, and open displays of affection. But the truth is, love is as diverse as the people who carry it in their hearts. For some, love is soft, understated, and hidden behind the walls they've built to protect themselves, and that does not make it any less real or powerful. In fact, sometimes the quietest expressions of love are the deepest. Think about it for a moment. Imagine someone who has been hurt, someone who has learned to protect themselves from rejection or disappointment. Their natural instinct is to stay guarded, to stay in control, to not let anyone too close. For them, vulnerability feels like danger, and yet, despite that instinct, they choose to remain in your life. They may not always tell you how they feel in a loud or dramatic way, but their choice to stay, their decision to keep showing up, is love. It is their version of saying, "You matter, you are worth the risk." When we expect love to always look a certain way, we can miss the subtle beauty of how it shows up in others. Some people may not flood you with constant compliments, but they notice the little things about you. They remember the details of what you said weeks ago. They adjust their routine to make space for you, even if they never announce it. They listen more than they speak, and while they may not say, "I love you," every day, their actions speak in quiet tones that are easy to overlook if you're only listening for the loud version of love. And here's the deeper lesson. Love that is quiet requires us to be present and attentive. It requires us to look beyond words and watch what someone does consistently. A person who may not shower you with affection could still be the one who always answers when you call, who shows up when you need help, who chooses to stay even when it's uncomfortable for them. That consistency is love in action, and it's easy to underestimate because it doesn't sparkle like fireworks. It glows like a steady flame. Sometimes the loudest declarations of love are the easiest to give. Anyone can buy flowers, post about you online, or say the right words in the right moment. But to keep showing up day after day when it goes against their own fears and patterns, that is extraordinary. Love is not always loud, but it is always intentional. And when someone who struggles with vulnerability lets you in, even in the smallest way, that act is monumental. So the next time you question whether someone truly loves you because they don't express it the way you expect, pause and look closer. Notice the ways they remain. Notice the times they reach out quietly, even when it takes courage for them to do so. Notice how they protect you, support you, or make sacrifices without drawing attention to it. That is love. It may be silent, but it is steady and it is real. Love is not always loud, but when you learn to hear the whispers, you realize that sometimes the quietest kind of love is the strongest of all. Would you like me to expand each of the 6 keynotes one by one into a full motivational series, each around 600-700 words, so you can build a complete educational talk or book-style content? Avoidance value safety over expression. For most people, expressing love feels natural, saying I love you, reaching out for a hug, showing affection in big and small ways. But for someone with an avoidant pattern, love does not flow outward so easily. Their mind and body are wired to protect them from potential pain, abandonment, or rejection. Safety becomes their highest priority, and so their love often comes wrapped in caution. They may appear reserved or detached, not because they don't care, but because caring deeply is dangerous in their world. To them, safety means control, and control often means withholding open displays of emotion. If you look deeper, though, you'll see that their way of loving is not absent. It's simply filtered through the lens of protection. Every person wants to connect, even those who seem distant. But for the avoidant, connection carries risk, and risk feels threatening. So instead of expressing their emotions loudly, they channel love into creating safe structures, into keeping things stable, into ensuring they are not overwhelmed. Their silence is not rejection, it's self-preservation. And when you begin to understand this, you stop taking their lack of expression personally. You start seeing that behind every pause, every moment of withdrawal, is someone fighting an inner battle between fear and desire. What's powerful is this: when an avoidant chooses to stay in a relationship, they are already choosing to step into discomfort. That decision itself is an act of love, even if they don't express it the way you wish they would. Because for them, being present is not easy. It takes effort. It takes courage. They are valuing safety, yes, but they are also valuing you enough to remain, even while their instincts push them to retreat. That quiet resilience is their form of expression. It's their way of saying, you matter enough for me to face my fears. We live in a world that celebrates verbal affirmation and outward affection, but love wears many masks. When safety is the priority, love can look like restraint. It can look like silence. It can look like small gestures made cautiously, as if each step forward carries the weight of years of protection. And yet, those small steps are enormous victories for the avoidant. What looks minimal to you may be monumental for them. That is why understanding is so important, because when you see love through their lens, you realize it is there, steady and real, even if it doesn't shout. Consistency is the hidden language of love. While words can be sweet and gestures can be grand, nothing speaks louder than the patterns of someone's behavior. Consistency is the proof that feelings are not fleeting, that they are rooted in commitment rather than impulse. For the avoidant, this truth is even more powerful because expressing emotion may be rare, but showing up consistently is their way of proving love without words. Think about it. Anyone can say, I love you. in a heated moment of passion, but not everyone can keep showing up when things get difficult. Avoidants may not declare their feelings openly, but they reveal them through reliability. They answer the phone when you need them. They remember to take care of the small things that matter to you. They don't always say much, but they come back again and again, even after pulling away. That pattern is not accidental, it is a choice. And in that choice lies the truth of their love. The power of consistency is that it builds trust. For someone who struggles with vulnerability, keeping promises and showing up may feel safer than exposing their raw emotions. But that consistency is their form of intimacy. It's how they communicate loyalty and care. It's how they tell you without needing to say the words, "I am here, you can count on me." And isn't that the essence of love? To know that someone will stand by you not just once, but repeatedly through time and challenge. When you focus only on dramatic displays of affection, you may miss this hidden language. But when you look at the long-term picture, you see how consistency speaks louder than the occasional burst of passion. It's easy to give love in grand moments. It's harder to give it in daily, steady ways. The avoidant who keeps returning, who quietly creates stability, is showing you the truest form of devotion. In the end, love is not always about how loudly it's expressed, but how deeply it endures. Safety and consistency may not dazzle you in the moment, but they are the foundation on which lasting love is built. And when you learn to recognize them, you begin to see that even in silence, even in distance, love is always speaking. Consistency is the hidden language of love. While the world often teaches us to measure love in grand gestures, expensive gifts, or poetic declarations, the truth is that love reveals itself most honestly in the daily rhythm of someone's actions. Words are powerful, but they can be fleeting. Gestures are beautiful, but they can be temporary. Consistency, however, is a pattern that endures. It is the thread that weaves reliability, trust, and devotion into the fabric of a relationship. For someone who is avoidant, this truth becomes even more profound, because consistency is often the only safe channel through which they can let love be known. When a person struggles to voice their feelings or express them outwardly, their actions become the real window into their heart. They may not say, "I love you," every day, but they return when they could have disappeared. They may not reach out with constant affection, but they check in regularly, showing you that you matter. That steady rhythm is not accidental. It is intentional, and it's in that intentional repetition that their love speaks most clearly. Consistency is not glamorous. It doesn't sweep you off your feet in a rush of passion, but it grounds you. It creates a foundation that says, "I am not here just for the highs, I am here through the lows too." It's easy for anyone to show up when it's convenient or when emotions are high. It's easy to express affection when everything feels exciting and new. But what happens when things are hard, when there is distance, when fear sets in, when silence fills the space between two people? This is where consistency separates surface-level affection from genuine love. The avoidant who continues to stay connected, even quietly, is demonstrating that their care runs deeper than their fear. Their actions, repeated over time, are their way of saying, "I may not always show it in the way you expect, but I am with you." What makes consistency powerful is that it builds trust. Trust is not built in the big moments, it's built in the ordinary ones. When someone shows up over and over, you begin to believe in their presence. You learn that you can rely on them even if they are not the loudest about their love. For the avoidant, this is particularly significant because reliability is safer for them than vulnerability. They may not risk full emotional exposure, but they risk showing up. And that is their unique form of courage. Think about the quiet ways consistency shows up. The person who always answers your call, even if they don't talk much. The partner who makes sure you're taken care of in small ways, like remembering your routines or respecting your boundaries. The friend who, no matter how much they retreat, eventually comes back because they value the connection too much to let it go. None of these actions scream romance in the traditional sense, but they whisper loyalty. And sometimes whispers carry more truth than shouts. Consistency also proves something deeper: commitment. Commitment is not a word, it's a pattern. It's a decision made not once, but over and over again, every day. When an avoidant chooses to return, chooses to maintain the connection, chooses to remain in your life despite the discomfort of vulnerability, that's love in its purest form. It may not fit the image of passion we are taught to seek, but it is the type of love that stands the test of time. When we look for love only in dramatic displays, we risk missing the most authentic expressions. The avoidant who loves you may not be loud, but they are steady, they are consistent, and in their world, that consistency is everything. It is proof that despite fear, despite instinct, despite their natural pull toward distance, they choose connection, and that choice made repeatedly is what transforms quiet affection into enduring love. Vulnerability is their greatest gift. For someone who struggles with avoidance, vulnerability is not a casual act. It is a mountain they must climb. To open their heart, even slightly, feels like stepping into dangerous territory. They have built walls not because they don't want love, but because love has always carried the threat of pain, rejection, or disappointment. For them, safety has often meant silence, control, or distance. So when they finally allow themselves to share a piece of their inner world, it is not small, it is monumental. That moment of openness is not just a gesture, it is a gift, one of the rarest and most valuable forms of love they can offer. Think about what vulnerability means to someone who has spent a lifetime protecting themselves. It means letting down their guard, even if only for a moment. It means risking being misunderstood, risking the possibility that their truth won't be received with care. It means allowing someone else to see behind the mask they've carefully worn for years. When an avoidant shares a fear, admits a weakness, or simply lets you in on what they're really feeling, they are offering you something sacred. They are saying, "I trust you with what I usually hide from the world." That trust is not given easily, and when it is offered, it should be honored deeply. Many people equate vulnerability with weakness, but in reality, it is the highest form of strength. For the avoidant who has trained themselves to rely only on self-protection, being vulnerable is the equivalent of walking into fire. It goes against their instincts, it pushes them beyond their comfort zone. Yet they choose to do it because love pushes them forward. That is why it is a gift. It's not automatic, it's intentional, it is not casual, it is courageous. Vulnerability doesn't always come as a grand confession. Sometimes it's subtle. It might be the way they admit they were wrong, even if it's difficult. It might be the way they let you see their disappointment, sadness, or even their joy. It might be as simple as them reaching out when they're struggling instead of retreating. To you, these acts may seem small, but for them, they carry the weight of years of restraint. Each moment of openness is proof that you have earned their trust in ways others never could. When you experience these moments, it is important to recognize what they truly mean. They are not accidents, they are choices. The avoidant is making the conscious decision to give you access to their heart, even though every part of them wants to keep it hidden. That choice is love in its rawest form. It is a demonstration that they value the connection enough to face their greatest fear, being seen. And here's the lesson for anyone who loves an avoidant. Don't overlook or dismiss these small acts of vulnerability. Celebrate them, nurture them. When they open up, even slightly, respond with empathy, not judgment. Honor the courage it took to let you in, because the more they feel safe in vulnerability, the more they will allow themselves to step into it again. Love grows in the soil of trust, and trust deepens when vulnerability is met with care. At its core, vulnerability is the bridge that transforms guarded affection into genuine intimacy. Without it, relationships remain surface, level, polite, or functional. With it, they become real, alive, and unbreakable. For the avoidant, that bridge is not crossed easily, but when they do take that step, it means they are truly investing their heart. That is why vulnerability is not just a moment, it is a milestone. It is their greatest gift, a treasure that reveals the depth of their love in a way no other action can. Space doesn't equal rejection. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about people who carry avoidant tendencies. When someone you care about pulls away, your first instinct may be to assume they don't value you, that they're losing interest, or that love is fading. But for the avoidant, space is not about rejecting you, it's about regulating themselves. It's how they process emotions, manage overwhelm, and regain a sense of safety in a world that often feels unpredictable. Distance for them is not abandonment, it's survival. To someone who loves openly and eagerly, stepping back can feel cold, even cruel. But avoidance is rarely about the other person. It is about the inner landscape of the avoidant's own mind. They are wired to protect themselves from becoming dependent or from feeling trapped. When emotions run too high or when intimacy feels too close, their reflex is to retreat. It's not because they don't care, it's because caring so deeply feels dangerous. Their nervous system interprets closeness as a threat, and space becomes their way of calming that internal alarm. When you understand this, your perspective changes. Instead of taking their distance as a personal rejection, you can begin to see it as part of their process. You realize that stepping back is not a withdrawal of love, but a way of holding on to it without becoming overwhelmed. The avoidant who loves you may not always lean in when emotions intensify, but the fact that they return after taking space is the real sign of their commitment. They are not leaving, they are rebalancing. Think about it like breathing. Just as we inhale and exhale, avoidants need closeness and space. Both are part of their rhythm. To demand only closeness is to deny them the exhale they need to feel safe. But when you allow them that space without judgment, something powerful happens. They learn that love doesn't have to mean suffocation. They learn that they can step back without losing the relationship. And in that safety, they often return with greater openness than before. The challenge, of course, is resisting the temptation to chase when they pull away. Chasing only heightens their sense of being trapped, pushing them further back. The wiser choice is to hold steady, to trust that their space is temporary, and to focus on your own grounding in the meantime. When they see that you can handle their distance without panic or punishment, their trust in the relationship grows. Space then becomes less of a threat and more of a natural rhythm. Love requires patience, and with an avoidant partner, that patience includes respecting their need for solitude. This doesn't mean accepting neglect or tolerating unhealthy disconnection. It means recognizing the difference between rejection and regulation. A true rejection is final, but space is temporary. It's a pause, not an ending. It's their way of preserving the connection by not allowing overwhelm to destroy it. In fact, the irony is that space is often the very thing that allows the avoidant to stay. Without it, they may feel smothered and forced to cut ties completely. With it, they can breathe, recalibrate, and then return with renewed energy. When they come back, it's a choice they've made consciously, and that choice is love in action. So instead of fearing the silence, learn to respect it. Instead of misinterpreting distance as disinterest, understand it as part of their language of love. Because in their world, space is not a wall built against you. It's a bridge that allows them to cross back to you again and again. And when you see it that way, you stop fearing their pauses and start trusting the depth of their return. Love shows up in protection and presence. For someone with avoidant tendencies, love is rarely expressed in overflowing words or public displays of affection. Instead, it reveals itself in quieter, more grounded ways. One of the most powerful of these is the instinct to protect. Protection does not always mean standing in front of danger. Often, it means creating stability, shielding you from unnecessary chaos, and making sure you feel secure even when they cannot articulate their feelings out loud. Their love is embedded in their desire to keep you safe, whether emotionally, physically, or practically. Think about how they act when life gets difficult. They may not always comfort you with long conversations or poetic reassurances, but notice how they make sure you have what you need. They may fix things behind the scenes, take responsibility when it matters, or quietly handle the problems that would otherwise overwhelm you. That is love. It may not look like the fairy tale version we often imagine, but it is devotion expressed through action. Protection is their way of saying, You matter enough for me to make sure you're okay. Presence is the other side of this truth. For avoidance, being present is not easy. Their instinct, when emotions become too strong, is to withdraw, to create distance. Yet, when they remain, when they choose to stay close despite discomfort, it's a sign of love that goes far deeper than words. Their presence, even if silent, is proof of commitment. Sometimes they may sit with you without saying much, but the fact that they are there instead of running away tells you more about their feelings than any declaration ever could. We often undervalue presence because we expect love to always be loud and expressive. But presence is power. Presence says, I am with you. Presence communicates loyalty without needing to embellish it with constant reassurance. And for someone who struggles with avoidance, presence is an act of courage. To sit with you, to walk beside you, to return again and again, that is how their love manifests. Protection and presence together form the foundation of their devotion. Protection ensures that you are cared for and that harm is minimized. Presence ensures that you never walk alone. Together, they create a quiet but unshakable form of love, one that is not built on theatrics but on steadiness. For the avoidant, this is how love feels safe to give. Words can feel risky, vulnerability can feel terrifying, but action, through protecting and being there, is something they can offer fully. It's easy to miss these signs if you're only looking for traditional expressions of romance. You may mistake their silence for indifference or their practicality for coldness, but when you look closer, you'll see that their actions are filled with care. They may not say, I love you, every day, but they'll make sure your car is safe to drive. They may not plan elaborate dates, but they'll quietly ensure you're comfortable, supported, and not left to face life's struggles alone. These gestures are not accidental. They are intentional choices that reveal their love. At its core, love is about showing up again and again in ways that matter. For the avoidant, protection and presence are their most authentic ways of showing up. They may not shout it, but they demonstrate it. They may not write it in words, but they live it in actions. And if you pay attention, you'll see that this kind of love is not only real, but enduring. It may not sparkle like fireworks, but it holds steady like the ground beneath your feet. So, if you ever wonder whether an avoidant truly loves you, don't just listen to what they say. Watch how they protect you, how they remain present even when it's hard for them, and how they choose to stay when leaving would be easier. That is their hidden language of love. It is not loud, but it is strong, and it is often the truest love of all.